Hello, everybody. Welcome to Space. My name is Shamesh. I'm author of Mindfulness for Dummies, and today I'm going to be talking about the 7 circles that we can live in. And the 7 circles are individual, family, community, nation, humanity, nature, and the universe. And I'm going to be talking about why this could be potentially a useful model for you to think about yourself and a useful model for thinking about other people. And if you see things in this way, it can make it a bit easier to understand why people are behaving the way they are and the way you are behaving. And one of the things I want to emphasize isn't that one is good and one is bad, or you should move from one level to another, or even if the levels are fixed, it's just a model, it's just an idea, and it could be a good way of thinking about things. I saw this model quite a few years ago. It was slightly different, and they called it levels of compassion, as if we gradually need to improve or increase and our levels of compassion can increase. And it reminds me of a great quote by Einstein about the human being is part of the whole called by us universe, a part separated in space and time. He or she experiences thoughts and emotions as something separate from themselves, a kind of optical delusion of their consciousness. And it just goes on to say, well, our task must be to expand our circles of compassion to include all of humanity and the universe. Something along those lines. I'm surprised I remember it. Probably read it so many times. Let's think about this model. So, starting with individual. So, a person who lives in the circle of the individual obviously thinks about themselves and themselves only. And we all have this to a certain extent. We all have an ego, a sense of a separate self, and we need that to be able to operate in the world. If there was no sense of self at all, then you wouldn't do anything. I don't think you wouldn't be able to eat or function anyway because you wouldn't realize the difference between you and the food. So there needs to be that sense of separation. And that sense of separation arises around age 1.5, when our sense of self arises, when we look in a mirror and we realize that's not just another baby in the mirror. There's a me there, and the terrible twos happen that some of you who are parents out there would probably know about. So that's the individual ego. But as an adult, if we continue to live into that circle, everything is about yourself only. I won't mention any politicians today, but you can imagine how somebody would live in that circle and just think about themselves and how things would work best for themselves. Now, if you come across a person like this, or even you see your tendencies of yourself to be like that, I would invite you not to say, try and call them, say that they've got a big ego or they need to think about someone else, because if that's the world that they're living in at the moment, and it's only through a personal insight that may come to them that they would go to another level. So what I'm going to put here is insight, I would say. Insight, understanding, observation, something would happen for them to help to grow from individual to the next level. So a person who lives in the circle of family would think about their family and their family first, and family is everything. And we naturally live in this level a lot too. In a sense, I guess we're wired to care about ourselves and about our family a lot. And so, if anything happened to our family or hurt our family, it would be like it would be hurting ourselves, and that would be very painful for us. And we would do everything to make sure that our families looked after, perhaps even to the detriment of the community and the other stuff. So that's some people. Again, you know, very healthy, very good thing to do to look after our families. I'm not saying it's good or bad. It's just another circle that we can live in. And then the next level from family can be community. And some people are community first people. They think about their community a lot. They care about the community. And community can be different things. It could be online community that you're part of. It could be an in-person community. It could be your local community. Whereas in the old days, community only meant people in our area, people who are physically connected with. The definition of community is changing nowadays because we can connect with people non-locally via telephone, via Zoom, via this experience here. So in a way, as you're present here, this is an example of a mini community that we're part of. And the more we connect with each other and talk to each other and care for each other, the more that community builds. So we can live on this community level. And interestingly, we can be so obsessed with community, maybe we would disconnect with family, and maybe we would disconnect with the sense of self here. And so you could care so much about community, and what comes to mind is a cult where the community comes first, or the cult comes first, to the detriment of the family or to the detriment of the individual. So there needs to be a bit of a balance here, I would say. So if there's too much obsession with community, that's unhealthy too. So there needs to be, a connection with community, but also hopefully friends or family and the individual. Next level up is nation. And the interesting thing is that you can have someone like a politician that's very individual based, and you can tell that from their speeches and stuff, hopefully, where they're taking decisions that would be beneficial for them rather than the nation. But you can also have amazing leaders who really put their nation first, and they're willing to step down or do things so that it's beneficial for the nation, but may not be so beneficial for themselves. Can't think of well, if you take someone like perhaps Gandhi or Martin Luther King, or maybe you can think of some examples. I'm not brilliant on history and stuff like that, but at the nation level, people can be making decisions that can be beneficial for them. But interestingly, in some of those examples, those people may have acted to the detriment of their family or their local community too. So sometimes you can step into a circle or live in a particular circle, which can actually have a negative effect on the other circles. And I would argue you want to try and have a balance of all of them, including individual. And that's, a lot of people talk about self-care and self-compassion nowadays, and that's making sure that the individual is cared for. Because if there's no sense of caring for the individual at all, how can you care for the others? So again, it becomes harder to have the balance, I guess. Next level from nation would be something at a level of humanity. And I like to think from listening, I've watched a lot of talks by the senior leaders at the World Health Organization, and my sense is that they're operating at that level of humanity. They're not trying to focus on any particular nation. They're thinking about the health and well-being of humanity as a whole, and they're operating at that humanity level. And hopefully they're able to take care of these other levels too, to make sure that they're okay. But maybe they'd be struggling. Can't remember the name of the chap in the US, the guy who's responsible for the health care in the US, but he comes on TV so many times, constantly talking about the importance of the health and safety and the masks and all that kind of stuff. So he's working at the level of nation, also perhaps thinking about humanity, but hopefully he's looking after the individual level too, because I can always see that he's struggling with his voice and looking quite tired as well. So some people work at level of humanity. I'd like to think some people in the United Nations are working at that level, but even politicians working at the national level could also be thinking on a humanity level, or even on community could be thinking about humanity level, which is really, really nice. And then it's not just politicians. I've talked about politicians a lot, but any person can be thinking about that level. You could be part of a charity that works on that level. You could be just doing research on the internet, or you may have your little club or something, and yet you're thinking on that level. So that's another one. And then above humanity, I've put nature. So this is about not just human beings, but also other animals, plants, all living beings, potentially the earth as a whole, Gaia, which my friend often says. And that's operating at that level of nature and thinking about all living beings. And I like to think someone like David Attenborough is working at that level. He's not doing it for the money. He's 92 or 93 now, and he's still making programs for Netflix talking about nature, the importance of caring for nature. And perhaps he's working up some of those other levels too. Who knows? And you could be doing something like that by, let's say, you try to be vegan once in a while, or you are vegan all the time, or you take action to look after the environment, for example. And all the stuff that we hear about climate change requires thinking on the level of humanity and also on the level of nature, because if the climate changes too much, it will threaten those levels. But if we're just living on that level alone, then no matter how much news you share about stuff on that level, it won't connect. And you can't force someone, I don't think, to go from one level to another. They need to come to it in their own time. There may be little wages that you can nudge them in that direction. And I've been reading and listening to the people who wrote the book Nudge. I highly recommend it if you haven't heard it. That's really interesting. And then I was thinking about what another level would be, and potentially this is not a circle, maybe it is, but it's living on the level of the universe, which is the background we've got here today. That's what the universe looks like, if you're wondering. Actually, the universe looks like what you're seeing right now, because what you're seeing right now, computers, desk, everything is the universe. And living at the level of universe is quite an interesting one. And I guess I like to put someone like Einstein and some of the scientists, but anybody who's got a sense of wonder looks out in the sky, not just necessarily the stars, but even the trees or the houses or the computers, and doesn't see them as separate objects, but sees everything, including themselves, as part of the universe, is really seeing a connection between all those different levels. And you can get lost by just thinking about universe in terms of space and the stars. And you can think of absent-minded professors. They'd be thinking about the universe and how the universe operates, but they'd be bumping into lampposts and forgetting to pay their taxes or whatever, or doing their normal everyday tasks, because of they're almost lost at that level. But you could also reflect on that level from time to time and remind yourself of the big picture. So yeah, there's one model. I'd love to, let's see, there's a couple of comments here. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are, or any other insights that come from that. Good morning, Ivanka. And someone else, I'm not sure who they are, Shauna Johnson. Yeah, so I'll show you again, just to give you a good look at this particular model. And just some of the things that I want to emphasize is that if you keep this in mind, then when you come across someone and you're frustrated by their behavior, or they're not seeing things your way, you can just think, they're just operating in a different circle. You can call it circle of compassion or circle of insight, maybe, but they're just operating and living in a different circle. And so the reason why they're behaving the way they are or acting the way they are is because they're caught up in that circle. And you may not like to look up or find out some clever ways to nudge them from one circle to another, and that may be helpful for them, and they might find themselves feeling a bit happier when they step into another circle, or just create a bit of a balance. Let's say if someone, like one of your friends, is working on community and they're caring a lot about community, but they're not looking after themselves, and they're living in that circle of community. And maybe even if you showed this diagram and said, hey, look, community is important, but you need to also feed these other levels to make sure that you're able to look after yourself and those around you. And that may actually lead to some insight or observation. So circles of insight or compassion there. Hope you found that interesting. And I look forward to connecting with you again soon. Any questions or comments or complaints? Let me know. Bye-bye from the universe. See you tomorrow. Oh yeah, by the way, if you're seeing this on YouTube or Facebook, please like and share and do all that kind of stuff so that we can reach more people. I'm trying to get 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, so then we can do some better YouTube lives and stuff as well. So that'd be great. Thanks a lot. See you tomorrow. Bye for now.